When Wonderful got announced as number 11 on HLTV's top 20, I said I would take almost anyone else in the top 20 over Wonderful if I was building a team. And honestly, watching this game against Spirit, it really felt like, look, I don't want to be too harsh on someone for having one bad game. It happens to absolutely everyone, but it feels like a consistent thing now where Wonderful in these stage matches, in big games, against the best teams, he really struggles. It's not because he's set up terribly. I want to show you this game, just all of the gun rounds from this game and how Wonderful dies. And look, this first death, not that big of a deal in that these types of things happen. They do happen once in a while. But he's also just kind of brain AFK in that he could just have his gun out, and Donk did actually kind of whiff on Wonderful and give him time to shoot back. He could have had a shot back, even if he was caught off guard, but he was like looking at his radar, probably trying to remember what he was supposed to be doing here. Whatever, it does actually happen once in a while. I'm not going to be too hard on him. It's the rest of the game. Because I think generally, look, Wonderful isn't set up for the most aggressive plays of any opera out there. In fact, I think Na'Vi might not fit with his playstyle necessarily. I feel like Wonderful, the way he ops, looks like someone that wants to be hyper aggressive, re-peaking, all of this stuff. And that's just not what he's being asked to do. Maybe I could be reading that wrong, but that's kind of what it feels like because he just misses too many easy shots to be playing the Shiro style, like the passive hold angles and give up zero opportunity for your opponents to get entries. Like here, no big deal. Look, he gets flashed off an angle, has to fall back. It's not the end of the world. He's going to make his way back over to A as the round goes on, and he's going to actually be in perfect position to hold the exact execute that comes out. The smoke goes down. He tosses the nade to break the smoke. The smoke actually does get broken, but he gets partially blind. Again, not his fault. Takes a bit of damage from the molly, and he will end up getting a kill here. And the problem is this is one of his most successful rounds in the game. He stands up, gets the kill on Shiro, peeks deep into Magix. I think he could have played that a little bit back because you know you're likely to get swung as soon as you go for that first shot, but I think that's kind of nitpicky. It can go either way. He gets one and dies. Not a bad round. Interestingly, Wonderful almost feels better with a rifle. I actually feel similar about Ultimate, but much more strongly. That Ultimate feels much better with a rifle than he does with an op at times, and I think the same is sometimes true of Wonderful. When he picks up an op, I just feel like he's less likely to miss. He's less likely to let a free kill go by. His positioning still makes a lot of sense. And a lot of operas do struggle with rifles, but I feel like Wonderful does a really good job. And he did so in the previous round, but he wasn't really the most interesting. In this round, he's just going to be holding the long push. Eventually, he's going to make his way back over to the A site. They're in a 3v4. It's not the greatest position, but he gets himself into a good spot, picks up one, takes down Chopper, who's kind of a little bit unaware, and then picks up a third one as well. And this is a Wonderful that I give him a break. I try not to go too hard on someone for one bad game because everyone has bad games and you miss a few shots. It's not the end of the, I mean, it's not good, but it's not the end of the world. But Wonderful, while having a really bad game with the op, like he's just going to miss a lot of shots he needs to be hitting, he actually does really well when he picks up the rifle. It's actually kind of confusing how well he does with the rifle. But one of the funny things about this game, if we talk specifically about this matchup, is Wonderful is very worried about these long lurk plays, and he's often left as the one to try and watch and hold on to those plays. And he watches it intently, basically except for every round that they actually do come out long. It's actually kind of hilarious how that one works out, but whatever. 4v4, maybe he should have hit that shot on the player swing on the bomb site. That's, you know, one of the angles you're expecting operas to do well in, but he definitely needs to be hitting this shot. And the first time I saw that, I noticed Donk looks like he gets dinked. And I was like, how do you dink someone with an op and not kill him? Actually, Wonderful just straight up misses that shot. Is JL from Elevator that dinks Donk at the exact same time. Wonderful just has to be hitting that shot. He double zooms. I think he wants to be single zoomed instead. So he unscopes, rescopes. That just can't be happening. That's just a kill he has to get. Even if they win the round, it's the type of kill that Wonderful misses far too often. And when we go into overtime, you're going to see those kills actually lose them rounds. But in regulation, it didn't end up mattering that much on CT side. He missed a couple of shots. Maybe he could have played a couple of situations better, but nothing, I mean, there's nothing egregious here. And in fact, he hits a couple of shots in this round that are pretty much going to win his team the round from what is a 4v5, right? They're doing a bit of a fake out mid. Shiro's walking up long. Wonderful on plat, picks up one, picks up two, and I think he actually picks up a third. No, Chopper actually takes him down, but he picks up two from the middle of the bomb site. He did get everything you can ask for him there, right? On the T side, I find myself being a lot less critical of Wonderful because every opper seems to generally struggle on the T sides. It's not always that easy to find openings. You're either in the right spot or you're not. You're either set up to find an opening or you're not, and generally Wonderful isn't set up for that many openings, I feel like, on the T side. The only oppers that seem to do well on T side are pretty much Zaiwu, because he's mostly rifling probably, and Shiro, who just plays extremely passive. So this is an example of a round where Wonderful really doesn't have much input on. His team, they set up for a B play. They actually get a couple people in a B, and as Wonderful's rotating his way back over to B to actually get into the bomb site, they both die. He gets smoked off. He doesn't really have a chance to get anything done in this round at all. But in the very following round, he will actually have a chance to get something done, because they're going to make their way out long, a little bit delayed. They're actually again in a 3v4, and it seems to be a pretty common occurrence. Wonderful in a 3v4 has a chance to get his team into the round. He just misses. He just misses an easy shot. And if he gets that kill on a chopper, most likely they get the second kill. Maybe they go 1 for 1 and they end up in a 2v2. That's probably the most likely scenario. But they, at the very least, most often will put themselves in a winnable round. Instead, Wonderful misses what is an easy shot. I'm just going to say that's an easy shot. He should be hitting that shot every time. It's a simple counter strafe. He misses. He dies. They lose. That's a round they could have won. And it's not that I don't think Wonderful can play his way out of this, because look, there are many oppers that have had struggles in playoffs. I mean, Device is a great example of that. He did struggle in big moments, and I think Wonderful in group stages is a very competent player. It just seems like when he gets into these really big matches against the best teams, he misses shots that he himself definitely knows he should be missing, and I'd say this is one of them, honestly, because it's not the easiest shot of all time, but he sees the flash came from sight. He just doesn't recognize. He thinks, okay, it might have actually come from behind the box. He's looking for Chopper to be peeking from behind the box. But the whole reason you have a player there with the op is to give him the opportunity to find that opening when the guy either jumps on the ledge or he swings out. It just feels like the trajectory, it was coming from sight. He should have been able to notice that, and he should have been pre-aimed in the right spot. Not the easiest shot of all time, but I still feel like it's one they set him up to get. He's got to get it. But at the end of the round, he doesn't really get much chance to do anything other than that, because once they have to abort on that B play, they go back to A. Magix just shuts them down entirely. And, well, actually, they do have a chance in this round, because Bits made his way up long. Wonderful on short can kind of trap these players in. The bomb's down, but it's actually Bit that's going to end up winning this round for them after Chopper takes down Wonderful. But, I mean, in that case, Wonderful didn't even get a shot off there, but he did buy enough time for Bit to get a kill. And I think one of the keys that if you're going to have a bad game as an opper, you have to be able to make those decisions. I'm not going to go for this shot here because it's a tough shot, and if I miss it, I might die. Instead, I'm going to buy a little bit more time for my team to carry me. And I think great oppers and riflers as well are also players that are capable of knowing, hey, things aren't going that well for me. I'm not going to take risks. I'm going to let myself be carried. That's actually, if you play matchmaking, that's something you should learn, because a lot of people have a bad game and then they just let themselves go like 0-15 and they just run it down and you never have a chance to win, you know, but whatever. Here at 4v5, I actually think Wonderful does a really good job. He does his role. His job here, hold the window peak. He does exactly that. He's actually going to turn around though and get a kill onto Magix at top mid. A really nice fucking kill. Just straight up, a really nice kill. He doesn't get that kill, he might die, but even if he doesn't die, he's going to be low HP. They're in a 3v3. Definitely winnable by Spirit. They still might not go for it, but it does kind of, I mean, it just straight up secures the round, right? Any chance that Spirit had, any consideration they might have had to go for it in a 3v3, they're not going to go for it. And I think if Wonderful doesn't hit that shot, high chance, because he took the shot, that he actually would have just died. But then you've got 12-10, and it's unfortunate because not only do you have 12-10, but this is definitely a round where Wonderful could have won, but I'm not going to put this one too heavily on Wonderful as a misplay because of the exact way it happens. But they're, again, going to go for this play out long. Wonderful posted on the corner, and this is why I get the vibe that just the way he shoots and the speed he shoots and the way he plays, it kind of just feels like to me he would be more natural playing a little bit more aggressive, but I didn't really watch much of him in Spirit to say if that's necessarily true. But this is one of those rounds. He's holding towards long. He's going to be holding the flank for quite a while here. And a general rule of thumb, by the way, if your team is in a good situation, if things are going well on the site side, you can hold the flank as long as you want. It's when things start going wrong towards the site side that you really need to be making sure that you're helping them, because then the flank, well, if the flank comes, we're losing anyways, so who cares? And if it isn't coming, then I can actually have an impact on the round. But into the 1v1, he just loses a 1v1 to Shiro. You can make all the critiques in the world if you think he could have played it differently. Then you end up, and they give Wonderful, by the way, AKs and stuff in these types of low buy rounds quite often. And Wonderful usually delivers, I feel like. That's why I've been saying I feel like he's a very good rifler. In this case, he gets naded for 50 damage, and he's coming out second. Shiro just spams him down. There's not much you can say about that, I don't think. But it's the overtime that I actually care about, because yet again, Wonderful's going to be given the op T side. A lot of teams don't opt that often on T side, but Dust 2 is a map where you will see the op picked up more often than not on T side, because you can just lock down so many angles. You can also bait your opponents kind of into peeking back into you. This actually happened with Brokey against... I think against Vitality, where a couple of rounds, Zaiwu, basically they just push Brokey off of an angle. Zaiwu holds the angle, Brokey walks right back into it. That's kind of like prime Dust 2. You know, that's just how Dust 2 is often played. It's a very effective way to play it. And you can do plays like this, where Wonderful's just going to be looking at the window play. Zontix, this isn't the easiest shot ever, but at the same time, he just has to be landing this. And you can see the bullet hole where the shot actually lands. It's a little bit below. I think Wonderful didn't counter-strafe correctly there, because it looked like his crosshair was on him. But so you can't actually see like the last tick before the shot where the crosshair actually was. You can't actually see. So he might have just flicked down. Really, the more important part is the CT side. And the CT side is where he just has to be better. Because on T side, I think he mostly did his job. He actually potentially won his team a round or two. But on CT side, and with Na'Vi, with the roster that Na'Vi has, I think all Wonderful has to do is not be a problem. Just don't lose his team rounds. Hit the easy shots. He doesn't even have to hit any crazy shots, win any crazy clutches. Just don't miss any of the easy ones, right? But the problem is he's missing a decent amount of the easy ones. So this time around, very similar to the previous round where they went up long, where he was watching long A the entire time. This time around, they lose the player on short, which means Spirit just immediately know they've got a player on short. Then they threw 3 smokes at the long cross. It's obvious the entire Na'Vi team is going up long. Now, the thing that's kind of crazy to me is that they have 3 mollies, right? And this molly from Wonderful is great, but they have 2 mollies on the players up here, and they're already committed to that they're crossing. They threw 3 smokes at the cross. They lost. It's very obvious they're going A, I feel like. You could definitely have Alexi B or Bit, I feel like, throw this molly. And Wonderful could throw the molly he's thrown twice already, which is the molly into long doors. And he could do, if he just played this exactly like he did in one of those previous rounds where his team just kind of either took the side or died, then this doesn't happen. But instead, he stops worrying about the flank because it's pretty late in the round. He's thinking we need to be focused on the site. That's the round Donk goes for the flank. And I mean, look, some of it is kind of just like a little bit of bad luck maybe, because he's been focused on the flank for so long, and then he decides like, okay, they're not going for that push. But at the same time, it feels like that might have been the game plan. Like, look, we know they like to flank through long quite often, even late in the round. We're going to be focused on that more so than we would against other teams. And then you get in towards overtime and you're like, okay, I'm just going to play this like I normally would or something. I don't know. I don't want to rate too heavily about one round like that, but it's just kind of interesting because the same thing's going to happen on their CT side. He's been focused on long, even late into rounds quite often, and he's going to end up looking away at the exact wrong round. But this is one, we've all seen this one, probably he's going to get owned. He's just going to get owned. And this is another one, like the one on mid where Donk walks out and Wonderful is just not quite ready for it. That happens once in a while. That happens to everyone. It's a problem if it happens too often, but it certainly isn't something that any opper hasn't dealt with at least a few times before. So I'm not going to say it's the biggest deal in the world. And in fact, I'm probably going to make a clip on Magix, because Magix has... in the final, Magix has, like, he used to actually be this insane eco hunter. In fact, he had the highest, like, eco hunting stats, depending on which stat you really used. in my eco hunting list. When I had that blame F eco hunt, one of my stats was how much more often do they go for opening kills against ecos compared to against gun rounds. And Magic's was at the top. You went for like 2 times more opening kill attempts against pistols than he did against full buys. But now in this final and in the final and in a lot of matches recently, he's been like this gun round merchant. It's actually crazy how insane he's been on gun rounds in a lot of these games, and it's, I don't know, it's worth talking about. But at the same time, look, I'll say it again, it shit happens, right? Wonderful just got kind of caught there, whatever. They can still play for double overtime. It's unfortunate that they had a couple of chances to close it out, but it's not the end of the world. 15-13 down, CT side dust 2. It's definitely winnable. This is the one where I'm talking about, okay, 30 seconds left. I mean, Navi do something similar. You go out long late enough, you definitely can catch Oppers or whoever's the long player trying to help the other side of the map. With 18 seconds, you're not necessarily thinking that. Your team doesn't have a molly on the other side, so you're thinking more like, okay, I need to support them over here. He tosses the molly down, tosses the nade. The shot he missed, I don't think that's a shot you generally hit. In fact, when I see a lot of Oppers play this angle, they kind of avoid that and they actually look for the player, because usually that smoke gets thrown, someone drops down and they try and peek you from down here to prevent I think the more passive angle a lot of people hold is like here to catch the player as he crosses to the box, which I think is the shot that most people land. I see a lot of the time they're ready for the player dropping down, or they actually just pivot back and just watch long. But with 15 seconds, of course, you're not going to pivot back and watch long. So he just doesn't expect that someone could come out long this late, which is unfortunate because that's something Spirit does do and Navi do as well. But at the same time, you have a cat hit like that. It's, I don't know. I don't know if I would think that is that huge of a misplay. It's something that happens once in a while, but it's another round where he's got the op, he's in position, doesn't hit a shot, doesn't get a kill, and they lose the round. But more importantly is this round, because rounds like that, it's a decision. I don't know. I'm not going to get too much into like the micro decision making because I'm not a pro, and that's what pros are specifically going to be much better at. I think the macro decision making, it's much easier for someone from the outside to see those problems, and it's harder for someone from the inside to see those problems as they're going on. So it's more likely to make mistakes, and whiffs everyone just sees and knows, you know? So this time around, Wonderful, again, similar position. This is kind of the spot that Oppers have loved for years and years and years, waiting for the play up mid. And that happened so fast that it looked like I scrolled past it because I did. But it's just the same thing as the long play, except up short. And look, again, that happens to people sometimes. I've even seen Magics. I think I saw Kerrigan do that to Zywoo at some point, maybe even in their game in Katowice. But that can happen once in a while. You can't be having that happen 2, 3, 4 times a game. At some point, I just feel like something's wrong if that's happening multiple times. And that is a round where Wonderful is the last line of defense. He has to be getting at least one, get one and play after plant. They're totally fine. They can retake the bomb site. He dies there. They just have almost no chance of winning the round. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. Someone could say that's just a really nice play by Magix, but at the same time, if your offer is getting swung on and killed by rifles on LAN, then either the game's the problem or there's something wrong. There's something wrong there. There's something wrong there. Wonderful anyways. I don't need him to be the best opera in the world. I just feel like if he lands the easy shots, doesn't miss the easy shots, they win at least one more round there, and they probably win the game, honestly. Or at the very least, they end up in overtime number 2.